today. I'm here to talk about big data for social good. But I think that before we begin, there's an important question that needs to be asked. The question is, what's good? So it's hard to understand the upside of something if you can't understand the down. So I'd like to spend just a few minutes to talk about that quickly. So I'm going to start with the obvious. As I'm sure everyone who knows the name Edward Snowden is aware, organizations like the NSA have your personal data. So if you've ever used Facebook's Skype, sent an email to or from a Gmail address, if you use vContact, LiveJournal, organizations like the NSA and the FSB have your data. So what does this mean for big data as an industry? One thing it means is that when you trust a company with your data, you're also trusting governments, your local government and foreign governments as well. So we know that generally the terms of this relationship, most local governments have a relationship with either the NSA, the FSB, or both. And we know that the terms of this relationship mean they tolerate foreigners' presence as long as they share data on the local population. So generally, no matter where you are in the world, your data filters through these companies, no matter where they're based, and gets back to your local government. And the important thing to remember is that these governments, they never delete data. And so what that means is that not only do you have to trust the current governments of all of these countries, but you have to trust every future government until your data is deleted. So privacy is kind of the elephant in the room here. So what can you do if you want to protect your privacy? So this is, it's a travel advisory given by the US State Department before the Sochi Winter Olympics in 2014. And so they recommend a few different things. I think this is instructive, even if it's kind of hilariously impractical. So they recommend traveling with clean devices, so removing all of your personally identifying information from your phone and computer. It's important here to remember that approximately 100% of information is personally identifying. So have your Wi-Fi turned off at all times, never connect to Wi-Fi. Change all of your passwords before and after every trip. So just before this presentation I checked, and I've got about 350 passwords. And so at about 2 minutes per change, that's about 40 hours of labor. So that's an extra week of vacation for every trip that I take. And you know, it says consider removing the battery from your smartphone when it's not in use. I don't know what the point is of having a phone if no one can call you. So you know, these are things that illustrate the work to be done here in this industry before everyone can really feel comfortable with how our data is traveling around and how it's being used. But even though privacy is kind of the elephant in the room, it's not the only concern. There are other concerns, you know, how well big data actually works, or more specifically, what it does well and what it does poorly. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the experiences of early adopters, and it should be instructive. So the life sciences were early adopters of big data tools and methods, specifically in the arena of DNA and protein sequencing. What happened was there was this hope that all of the information locked up in the tiny cells in our body could be unleashed and create this giant wave of new medicine very, very quickly. But unfortunately, it hasn't happened as quickly as was hoped. It's important to keep in mind here that this biotech bubble occurred in the middle of a long-term downtrend of return on investment for pharmaceutical research. So in every 10 years since 1950, the return on investment has gone down by 50% for the pharmaceutical industry. But it was hoped that in the late 90s and early 2000s that shifting billions of dollars into genomics data centers would turn this decline around, but it hasn't. So this is these are some graphs published in the journal Nature in 2012, and they show that in spite of this massive shift into data, it hasn't really been able to turn around the return on investment. So it's a bit disappointing. The researchers thought, you know, okay, maybe the answer is that all of the easy drugs have been found, or maybe the answer is that government regulation is much more strict now than it used to be, and that explains the decline. But they found that those easy answers don't actually explain the scale of the losses. So we're 80 times worse now at finding new drugs than we were in 1950. So as Maciej Seglovsky likes to say, a chain-smoking chemist randomly injecting chemicals into lab rats is a demonstrably better researcher than a genomics data center. Of course, he's being very glib when he says this, and it's not exactly precise. But what's important to keep in mind is that when you're thinking about complex natural systems, and this includes human behavior, they're full of interlocking, self-modifying systems that have interdependent variables that you can't isolate. So iterative search directed by a human being often performs better. And specifically, when you're studying, when the subject of your analysis is human beings that can realize that they're being monitored and then change their behavior based on that, it may be quite a while before machine learning algorithms really catch on to that. So there's one more example real quick before we move on. As we know, Google is big, so they have big successes and they have big failures. And I think this is probably the best known failure of big data strategy, and I think it's instructive. So in 2007, Google took a look backwards at 5 years worth of search results and 5 years worth of data about people going to the doctor to complaining of the flu. And then in 2008 and 2009, they correlated 45 keywords and they used them to predict the number of people that would go to the doctor based on search results. And for several years, it was very accurate. They were having the same accuracy as the previous source, which was the Centers for Disease Control, but they were doing it with a lag of 1 day instead of a delay of 2 weeks. So everyone was very impressed. But unfortunately, around 2010, 2011, it started overestimating. And by the height of the 2012-2013 season, it was overestimated by 140%, at which point Google killed the program. Now, at that point, even the most basic small data analysis methods were more successful at forecasting than the big data strategy. So what happened? Well, in addition to some technical concerns like overfitting for seasonal terms like high school basketball, Google didn't account for the influence of the media. So in these few years, there was a significantly different amount of media about the flu and about flu shots and flu visits. And so what happened was the search changed dramatically, but the number of people actually getting sick stayed pretty much the same. So there's that, and they also didn't account for some changes in their own search product. So suggested results actually changed the way people search considerably and wasn't factored in here. So the kind of moral of this story is that in very complex systems, what worked last year may not work this year. This is kind of a silly warning that US stockbrokers have to give to clients before they conduct a trade for them. Since past performance is not indicative of future returns, but it applies equally well to people selling big data insights. So finally, big data for social good. So how can data scientists use big data for social good? This is an organization called Bayes Impact, and they say that they are a group of practical idealists who believe that applied properly, data can be used to solve the world's biggest problems. So what are they doing? Well, they're fighting crime, for one thing. Proceeds. So I'm going to talk about the case of Damien Calderbank and how Bayes was able to use network analysis to help investigate money laundering. So London has traditionally been a popular choice for international money laundering because the British system allows companies to quietly move money into offshore areas of the British Virgin Islands that have very low transparency. And low transparency means that you don't have a lot of data to work with, even though the data set is very large. So there's a data set of 18 million British companies. Every private limited company in Britain has to do a few things, just a few. They have to register a name, an address, and the name of an employee to act as their director. Of course, people can be directors of multiple companies, companies can be directors of other companies, and both people and companies can have multiple names and addresses. So, how can we use network analysis to help identify money laundering? Well, it all started when Bayes got a tip from a journalist about a man named Damien Calderbank. So Damien is well known to the British authorities. He's under investigation, or I should say the companies that he's the director of are under investigation in several different money laundering cases. So the thing is that Damien is rare because he is connected to a very large number of people and businesses, but he has almost no online presence. So this is Damien's only online presence. It's a photography company that has no known clients and no completed work. Yet, Damien is connected to hundreds of British companies worth millions and millions of pounds. And this, actually, among the people who are similar, this is a large amount of online presence. Most people have zero. So, what you can do is, even with this coarse data set that doesn't have a lot of specific information, you can take the shape of Damien's network and find other people whose networks match the same shape. And when you do that, you get a list of names. Some people on this list are totally legitimate. You can see a name, Daniel Levy. He's the owner of the Tottenham Hotspur's football team. He's basically a household name in Britain, legitimately connected to a large number of businesses, and it's very easy to verify this online. However, a few names stand out when you look at online presence. So the four in red are highlighted, and these are people who have basically no information about them available whatsoever. Now, it's important here to remember that, this doesn't actually mean anyone's guilty of anything. All it means is that they look suspicious. But what you can do is you can take this giant database of 18 million names and you can sift it down to a very small number of names that are worth spending your time investigating. And that's what Bayes did in this case. So our next set of projects are big data for research. This is Public Lab. Public Lab is a really cool organization. They use DIY technology to help people investigate environmental concerns. So this is Riffle, which is an open source water quality management system. But basically what it is it's a large number of very inexpensive sensors that can transmit data about water quality over a large area. And what's cool about it is that it works in places that don't have smartphones, don't have computers, and don't have the internet. It transmits data over audio signals, which means that you can plug it into a dumb phone, dial a number, and leave a voicemail full of blips and beeps that then gets ingested into the system performs some analysis on it, and then it can send you back a text message with news you can use about your water quality. So the next project is by the Civic Media Group at MIT Media Lab. Civic Media Group is actually the ones that created that voicemail system. So it's kind of similar in the way that they're trying to get data that's not readily available. So, you can read in online in articles that we are creating 2.5 quintillion bytes of data every day, whatever that means to you. But the reality is that sometimes you can't find the data set that you need, so you have to create it. And so that's what MIT is doing here with a project called Place Pulse. What they want to know is how people feel about every street in every town on the entire planet. And the questions that they're asking are what looks safe, what looks lively, boring, wealthy, depressing, or beautiful. And so the way that they're gathering this data is that they just have Google Street View pull up some random images, and they have a human user click on the left or the right. In this case, they're asking which one looks safer or equivalent. And so somehow they've gotten over 1 million people to click on this website. I have no idea how they did that, but that's not my department. So what can you do with this data? Well, what you can do is you can train a machine learning algorithm to simulate human opinions. So you can train a piece of software to act like a human when it looks at these images. And the cool thing about that is that you can actually supplement it with hard data, like economic or crime data, and make it even more accurate. So here we can see, this is some of the human data. So if you look at the bottom on less safe to more safe, you've got Rio de Janeiro on one side, less safe, which is probably pretty accurate. But on more safe, you see the top result is Washington, D.C. In fact, Washington, D.C. is one of the deadliest cities on Earth, in spite of the fact that it looks very safe. So this is probably an opportunity for the software to score some points against the humans. So what can you do with this? A really interesting thing that you can do with this is that you can evaluate things that haven't been built yet. So this is a proposal for a building in the Budapest. So you can have the algorithm look at this and give it a score for safe, lively, boring, wealthy, depressing, or beautiful. So you could use this to narrow down the range of proposals so that a committee doesn't have to look at 500 proposals. Maybe you can automatically narrow it down to the top 20. You could also think about this as a tool for architects and designers. Maybe they want to ask the question, how do these numbers change if you paint the building green, like a bright green as opposed to black? Maybe the numbers change dramatically. Maybe they don't change at all. I think that either result would be interesting in this case. So the next set of projects are for open data and open governance. So this one's from the Macro Connections group at MIT Media Lab. This is called Promise Tracker. So this is a project that helps citizens use their cell phones to collect data and hold local governments accountable. So the way that it works is a citizen will create a page on the Promise Tracker website when the local government makes a promise. And then they'll go around the city and they can use their smartphone to upload reports about whether the government is keeping that promise or is breaking it. So on the left here, we can see someone taking an image, getting evidence of a promise to do restaurant inspections. On the right, you can see the campaign page for a promise to do better trash pickup in a particular neighborhood in the city called Berlin. So we can see here that 12 people have uploaded reports, and it looks like the government has about a 45% success rate. So not great, they've got some work to do. The last set of projects are from the Sunlight Foundation. This is a project called Scout, and what Scout is able to do is take some keywords from you, and it searches government documents. It can search bills, it can search speech transcripts, meeting transcripts, and it'll send you like a text or an email when someone in the government is talking about an issue that you care about. So you can see who is talking about it and what it is that they're saying. The next project is a browser extension called Influence Explorer. So Influence Explorer can automatically tell you who the owner is of the web page that you're looking at, and it can tell you how they're involved in politics, how much that business gave to a particular individual in a particular year, and whether they donated at the city level, county, national. You can also use this to highlight names of people and companies in the articles that you're reading and find out the information about them as well. This is the Sunlight Congress app, so you punch in your address and it tells you every person in your government, from local to national, that's responsible for representing you. You can see what bills they're writing, you can see their history of voting, and you can get information about where their offices are, who their staff members are, how to get in contact with them by email, phone, fax, etc. So this is an interesting little hack. There's an online app connection service called If This, Then That, and you can use it to connect your Sunlight app to your Facebook account. And you can automatically get a Facebook message that'll ask all of your friends if they would vote yay or nay on an upcoming vote in Parliament. So it's kind of a fun project. So overall here, the message is big data is a great way of looking inside of things that are otherwise opaque. But the problem is that once you get in there, that information needs to be translated, it needs to be digested in order to be called knowledge or insight. So this is a set of graphs that was created by a statistician named Francis Anscombe in the 70s. So he was in an argument over whether or not whether we should take the time to give computers the ability to output graphs. And he created this set of data sets in support of his argument that they should. So all four of these data sets look identical on a spreadsheet. You can say that they have the same mean, the same variance, the same correlation, and the same linear regression. It's only when you visualize them that the patterns become apparent. And the important thing to remember here is that an algorithm that's only designed to look at mean, variance, correlation, linear regression is going to think that these things look the same as well. So it's a really exciting time to be a data scientist. For the first time, we can venture inside of these really complex systems and pull out a tremendous amount of information. But it's also a really horrible time to be a data scientist because we're responsible for separating the signal from the noise. So there's a great analogy for looking for patterns in large data sets. And the analogy, okay, I'm just gonna finish this real quick. The analogy is that if you want a magic penny that always flips heads, all you need is a large enough bag, and you'll always find it. So with that, I'll leave you with a data visualization of Hurricane Irene, which is something both beautiful and deadly. Thank you.
Társadalmi kampányok mellett egyébként